We're talking to Natalie Jobling and Tom Hayhoe, the two-handed team on the J105 Mostly Harmless. And during the lockdown, during the COVID crisis, a lot of racing, Natalie. Tell us what you've been up to.
Well, we did one cruise just to remind ourselves how to sail, and that was in a totally empty Solent. We've then done some pursuit races with Royal Southampton, who were running COVID compliant racing on a Thursday evening. Do you want to talk about the rest of the things?
Well, actually, we've had to stop doing that because now that the lockdown's come to an end, there's too much traffic on the road for us to be able to get down from West London down to do an evening race in Southampton Water. But we then did, and it was a real sort of champagne day. Nigel Colley and the Solo Offshore Racing Club arranged a double-handed start. So we ended up with 10 double-handed boats racing double-handed a few weeks ago on what was, as I said, an absolutely gorgeous day. We should have been out for the last two weekends, but people may have noticed that it was actually blowing sort of force 7 on the brambles both weekends, which put paid to the first of the jog races out to the what they called the Lonely Tower race out to the NAB, and then the SORC were doing a follow-up to their first race, and both clubs very sensibly cancelled. But we've this weekend we've got a rerun of the Lonely Tower race, and then the Royal Southampton programme for double-handed sailing kind of clocks in with their West Princessa race, and then of course we hit the at the end of the month we've got the Rorke Round White race.
Yes.
And we've actually, the other bit is because there was an opportunity potentially for people to get racing double-handed before everything else would get going. We put a call out via Seahorse and one or two other channels to see if there's any interest in creating a WhatsApp group for IRC double-handed sailors. And there's something, well over 50 people on that list now, and I'm guessing something of the order of 35 to 40 boats represented.
So I mean that's incredible. It's incredible. I mean, we always knew two-handed racing was on the up. It's been on the up for at least 10 years or more. But it just shows, even with the crisis that's going on at the moment, it's actually flourishing, isn't it? I'll ask Natalie that. It's flourishing, isn't it?
Well, I think the great opportunity for double-handed is that you can actually sail COVID compliant. So my brother-in-law was sailing COVID compliant with somebody he wasn't in a household with, and they'd marked out the whole boat in 2-metre gaps so they could stay COVID compliant. But of course, you're also two-handed. You're more likely to be able to sail with somebody in your same household. Well, it's been quite fun listening to some people trying to work out how to make their boats work double-handed, because they're not set up to it, and they're not set up to the routines two-handed.
Yeah. Okay. And Tom, just going on to just focusing in on the Race the White. It's a cracking course with an amazing start, Tom, on the off the squadron line, isn't it?
Well, it's a classic actually, and the number of times I've done the Island Sailing Club version. Royal Southampton regularly do a double-handed one, but that sort of beat out down the Solent. The great challenge then, which is whether you go inside or outside Vardassi. I'm always up for living a little bit of an adrenaline rush as you go through, but we've got 3 waypoints put in at about 100-metre intervals to get us in through there. They're round the south side of the island where anything can happen, and then almost the relief once you've kind of are coming in past Ryde, and that was typically a final beat into the finish, with the uncertainty of getting around Norris and the Norris Nadgers.
Okay.
It's a great race.
It is, and Natalie, I'll focus in on Tom was alluding to there, the beat, assuming a southwesterly up to up to the needles there. That's a proper workout at the start of the race, particularly two-handed, isn't it?
Yes, although fortunately I end up making Tom work rather harder because obviously if he's through, he ends up having to do a lot of the work in the tacking. But we've actually worked out a pretty good system. So if I do my job properly, it's not too bad for him. I can make it easy for him in the tacks.
Yeah, I think that's a couple of things that for really effective double-handed sailing, you have to adjust certain bits of the boat handling. The J105 is nice because you haven't got a big overlapping jib, but just timing the tacks right so that you can really get the jib in quickly without having to bust a gut. Those sorts of little details make a big difference in double-handed sailing.
And also just trying to plan your tacks so you don't have to do too many, and certainly avoiding crash tacking because that really is hard work for both the crew.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's great to see you having a fantastic season with all that's going on around. And are you looking further into the future? Is there some big goal?
Well, I think it's always an interesting one, actually. Do we go back and do the Fastnet again? I've done Cross the Irish Sea, I think 18 times, and so I think there is a certain point where you feel like you've got the T-shirt.
I don't know. There's one goal I've got, which is to win the double-handed in the jog series, because we haven't managed to do that yet. Yeah, as in the series rather than individual races. Yeah,
so actually the fact we haven't got a proper series to play around with this season, it's one of those things where it's as a couple who race offshore double-handed, the new Olympic class kind of came along about 20 years too late for us.
Yes, otherwise we would definitely have been up for it.
Okay, if you were going to give a bit of advice to let's say a young athletic team who were going to give it a go and try and get into that Olympic class, what golden piece of advice, Natalie, would you give?
Ooh. I could have done with some notice on that question. I think it's the biggest thing is actually just really, really practicing all of your routines and trying out different ways of doing them. Because often it may be that doing it almost the opposite way to what you do it normally with a big crew may actually be the thing that's fastest.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. It's quite interesting. We always drop our kite to windward, which is a lesson that we learned actually from racing things like 14s and SB20s. But if you look at the way that people who come at this from a sort of fully crewed big boat approaches, they don't do the smart thing. They don't realise it's a smart thing. Yeah, they bring across things which work with big crews but won't be right for the double-handed. But I think that sea time is everything, and I think the other thing too, which people don't do enough of, is actually double-handed racing round the cans, because that's where you improve the routines, you push things just that little bit harder. That's where I think you're going to get actually lots of fun, but also you'll learn some of the big lessons.
And one last practical thing: extra cleats on the mast.
Yeah, you need to. Actually, I'll tell you the other thing, which is an important thing to do. We went for a couple of years without a working auto helm, and that was really, really good for our boat handling, because you learn to have to do things and have kind of default approaches that will stand you in good stead when you discover you haven't got enough arms and legs in the boat.
Okay, right, wonderful.
It's been a funny season with COVID interrupting everything for the first half, but there's lots of racing still to be done in the second half of the season, and we look forward to seeing everyone out there.